10 o'clock News Plus. Christmas is 6 months away, but if you're looking for the ideal present, better start saving for this Maryland doll. Plus, The Gray Fox. Mick Martin says it could be the best movie you'll see this year. Plus, tonight's News Plus special report. Thrift shops, an idea whose time has come. The 10 o'clock News Plus with Emmy Award winner Pete Wilson, Joe Conway, and Dave Grosby.
Good evening. You can forget the deadline. The state of California is entering the new fiscal year without a budget. The state assembly tonight was unable to resolve a deadlock between the Republicans and the Democrats, and the whole matter has been sent back to a conference committee with the state Senate.
And some variable winds, and you'll get bored. You'll be calling me up and saying, what's the weather doing in Sacramento?
I'll see you at the end of the show. Here's your go.
I've been attacked.
What are the Japanese doing? Picking an economic war? The story coming up. But next on the TV 40 10 o'clock News Plus, the MIA's return. Where have they been all these years, and why have they been there?
Well, so you're going to leave, huh? Is this really serious stuff?
With Elvis Presley? Not yet now. You've got a weather thing to do. And
well, you're going to be gone in, what, about 8 minutes? Mm-hmm. And the weather year ends in about an hour. Two big things right out the door. Okay, so what about that winter, huh? Wasn't it really bad? One of the worst winters we've ever had on record. Well, Rick Leonard has this report. This report you're going to see upcoming on the weather during the winter of 1982-83, which ends at midnight tonight, and a lot of people are going to say none too soon.
On almost every count, there was the rain. Lots and lots of rain. Double the normal amount of rain, more rain than Sacramento had seen in 130 years, 37.5 inches of rain. And the snow, oh, the snow. A record 66 feet of snow on Donner Summit. A record number of ski areas will still be open on July 4th. And the winds strong enough to topple high-tension towers in the Altamont Pass. Winds driving surf high enough to collapse century-old piers and million-dollar mansions. As a matter of fact, the weather, everyone's favorite topic of conversation, made more headlines in 1982 and 83 than practically any other subject. The Alviso floods, the broken levees, the landslides, the mudslides, the tornadoes in both Roseville and Los Angeles. The list goes on and on. Dozens of people died in weather-related incidents, millions of dollars in damage. But it's over now, except for the cleanup and economic recovery. This weather year is history, and not a minute too soon. For News Plus, I'm Rick Leonard.
Well, we don't have to worry about that over the weekend. We're going to have generally nice weather. We have a storm system moving in, but most of that is going to stay north. We might get a little bit of high-level cloudiness, but that's it. And some rain maybe in the extreme northern portions of California. Okay, so that's the weather for the weekend. Tonight, as we've been saying, most of the evening, this is the last night for Pete Wilson and News Plus, the last time they're going to be together. Before we say goodbye, let's take a look back at the news tandem.
News Plus is almost 4 years old. The program and Pete Wilson debuted in Sacramento together. Since that time, the program has changed, and so has Pete Wilson. As the minutes, days, and years passed, the program evolved, and so did Pete Wilson. Oh, he read the news, a lot of times with feeling. He interviewed a slew of guests, played with animals, and turned on toys. But there were two special segments that were his own, close to his heart. One was the sometimes satirical, tersely written, Just Folk segment. Just about anything was open to a potshot by Pete.
Ah, the curse of popularity, the trials and tribulations of fame. You could ask Conway. Or you could consider the travails of that brilliant actress and hair model, Farrah Fawcett, and friends. The one that's prettier than Farrah is Calvin Klein, by the way. Farrah had just received a terrible scare when a man rushed to the stage of her off-Broadway hit Extremities to declare his undying love for Farrah. That man was arrested. The penalty for loving the untalented.
But of course, the segment that brought Pete his highest acclaim, and the segment that perhaps Pete is most fond of, was Wilson at Large. Essays about life and the oddities of life. What made many of these Wilson at Large segments interesting was Pete's writing. At least that's what the Northern California radio and television news directors said when they gave him an award for his report on James Watt.
There does seem to be a softer person here somewhere, but again, he may just be learning his lessons, shading what he really feels. He may still be a wolf in John Muir's clothing. For instance, he is not exactly open to dialogue. Mr. Secretary, will you pay attention to the Sierra Club's petitions against you?
No.
We'll remember Pete for his analytical and nostalgic look back, as he did when he reported on the last taping of the TV show MASH.
Somebody decided to end the Korean War 30 years ago, but there is this gang of ghosts still cleaning up after the killing, still patching up the wounded in a remote hospital outpost somewhere south of reality, the 4077.
But what most of us will remember is Malathion Now. That cynical look at our state's war against the dreadful Mediterranean fruit fly won Pete an Emmy Award.
This is a CHP firebase along the demilitarized zone. Below us, the government-secured area, the village of Livermore, but farther to the west, the unsecured areas, Dublin, Danville, and the Santa Clara Valley. It is here that the government is trying to take its stand to prevent the fly from moving from the coastal mountains into the central plains. That, of course, is the big danger.
Thank you, Joe. I didn't know you were doing that.
Quite a tribute, eh?
Yes, and I appreciate everything that you have done and what everybody else has done. It's difficult to speak in absolutes on the last night working with a crew like this. This is a very special crew indeed. When I'm talking about in absolutes, is the best and the worst. News departments tend to do that a lot, talk about the best and the worst, or usually the best. I will talk about absolutes for one time only, and that's tonight. 4 years ago, we were absolutely the worst evening newscast in Sacramento. A lot has changed because of the hard work of a small news staff, the smallest in Sacramento. And I can honestly say tonight that over that time, this is absolutely the best news staff in this town, and absolutely the best town that I have ever lived in. And I think it has become absolutely the best evening newscast in the city. And I think it will continue to be that, and I hope that you watch it. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone I've worked with. Have a nice night.
To get the best beer in the world, you have to speak German.
Beck's.
Beck's, the #1 imported German beer.